Welcome. This podcast is an exploration into being human and what's possible when there's less attention on the noise in our heads. Warning. While listening to this broadcast, you may experience moments of deep peace, sighs of relief, personal insights, or long stretches of dead air. Do not be afraid. This is normal. Under the Noise with Wyn Morgan and Kate Roberts.
Welcome. This is Under the Noise with Kate Roberts and Wyn Morgan.
Hi.
Hi, Wyn. And today we've got Tracy with us. Tracy, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Really great to have you here.
Yeah. So, Tracy, we love having guests on, and we love to, show up in a space that's completely new. And part of that is oftentimes, instead of doing, a whole intro with the guest and what the guest has done in their career and all these things, we love to just ask our guests, what would you like for us to know about you? And just go from there.
Ooh. What would I like you to know about me versus what there is to know about me? Yeah.
Today, what are we going to talk about today? About Tracy?
Ooh. I guess what I would like you to know about me or to kind of share is where I'm at right now, and that I'm kind of on what feels like this this wonderful exploration. It's like, you pack your rucksack and you go off into the unknown and you've no idea, and it's kind of like this Indiana Jones type adventure. That's kind of where I feel like I'm at the moment. I feel like I'm having an adventure, which is, it's mad in itself because I've been stuck in my house for weeks and I can't go anywhere. Yeah, we've been in lockdown since Christmas, and so it's interesting as I'm kind of seeing that and saying that now, is that even in that, I still feel like I'm currently on an adventure because my mind is opening up and I'm seeing new things. And it's funny because it came to me recently on another call that in the last 12 months, since all of this, the COVID and everything, and the fact that I've kind of been investing more and spending more time kind of grounding myself and getting quiet, is that I've really felt this sense of I am thriving. But nothing has changed in terms of my circumstances, like nothing. And that this time 12 months ago, I was still very much living in a survival mode. And it was to see that and be in that kind of, wow, I'm thriving. Where did that come from?
How do you account for moving from surviving to thriving, but nothing's changed?
It was funny. It was what day? I think it was, sometime in January of last year. One of those days where you get up and like the dogs got sick on the floor or worse, and the toilet's backed up, and then you go out and you start the car and it won't start. It was one of those days. And I literally just threw all of my toys out of the pram because it was just one of those, oh, for fuck's sake, why does this shit keep happening to me? And what kind of transpired after that was that I called my ex-husband, who drives a taxi, and he was there within 15 or 20 minutes to bring the kids to school. He in turn rang a friend of his who sells cars and offered to give me the lend of a car to use until I could find out what was wrong with mine. And my friend sent her husband over to do something with my drains for me. And I kind of had a moment of, you hover above yourself and see your thinking. And I saw that I had made myself a martyr for a long time because I had had such victim thinking that, and it came on the back of, yeah, well, I can handle anything. I'm a really strong person. Go on, just throw it at me. I can handle this. But in doing that and in that thinking, I just seem to allow all of these little mini catastrophes to keep occurring. And I remember just in that moment going, yeah, I'm done with that now. I don't have time to be a martyr anymore. And I guess I saw that everything was always okay. And that everything was always working out for me. And I had been through an awful lot worse than that. And I'd been through losing my home and my marriage and, being a single mother surviving on very little. And everything always worked out all right. I always got the bills paid. Everything always got done. And I just decided that I think I'm ready to surrender now. And that kind of was really how it felt. It was like I just was ready to, just kind of let go and know that everything was going to be okay. And that just settled down, and it has continued to kind of settle and settle and settle ever since. Sorry, can you hear my daughter in the background? I'm going to just tell her to be quiet. Sorry.
Nice to know that she's enjoying it.
Shh, Mia, I'm recording a podcast. Be quiet. And I can't even really be cross with her because she's actually having kind of a bit of a bad day. And so to hear her laughing with her friend now, that's actually a good thing. Yeah.
In listening to you, it's possible that some people might have heard you say that and think, oh, okay, so as long as I tell myself it's okay, it'll be okay. And that will stop me being having victim thinking. But I don't think that's what you meant. Just the idea that things will be okay. I don't know if there's something in that you'd like to explore.
Yeah, and I guess it's not that I stopped having victim thinking. And it was funny because a few months ago, I remember getting just caught up in a loop of insecurity, getting caught up in some stories again. And I could see it and I knew what was going on. And in the past, I would have always felt like I had to do something to exorcise the demons out of my head, whether it was like, I'll journal it out of me, I'll meditate it out of me, or I'll run it or lift weights or whatever. And this time I just kind of said, well, what if I just sit with it and just let it be? And it went on for a few days. And then I remember I'd dropped my kids to school one day and I was in the car and I started going into an imagined reality in the future and getting all, this and thinking this happens. And I just saw myself and went, give it a rest, would you? And I tend to get bored with my thinking. So I start to bore myself with my pity party, where I'm like, this story is actually really boring now. I think I have a low attention span and it works so well in me shifting my thinking because I bore myself. And I did it in that minute where I just went, give it a rest, would you? And it's like reset, that Control Alt Delete that we all have all inbuilt, went, yes, it's time. Because I instantly just felt, just that good feeling rush. I could feel it tingling through my body. And I guess I was so aware of it because, when you kind of know how something sort of works, and I say kind of, sort of, because we don't really know, you can kind of observe it in action a little bit more. So it was just really cool to see that flood of well-being that was there. It was just a little bit blocked from getting through, and to kind of feel it coming back in that moment. And yeah, so I guess I know the thinking is always going to be there, and I know for me, my default is to go to that pity party victim mode, but I kind of don't take it as seriously as much anymore. It's okay. I'm kind of okay with it.
Tracy, you know what I love about your story? Even both of those stories. I think they're both talking to the same thing. Is that whether or not we have a story about our victimhood or a story about how strong we are and what we can handle, there's something there's everything in that space that you found between the story and seeing that you're making that story. And in that space, when we realize that, it's almost like the break or the quiet that we need that talks to us. And somehow the story just doesn't have the same solidity, that it had before we saw that. And even when you say things like, because we don't know how it works, there's part of us that knows that space, even if it's been forever since we felt it. And in that, I think it is in that space between our thoughts and seeing that we're making those thoughts is where we start to settle down. And I think that that's where everything comes through. And it's almost like, the more we come back to it, the more you seem to come back to it, the bigger the space gets. The more we settle down and the wider that gap becomes. And sometimes in the beginning, it's so small. But in that space is everything. I love that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I definitely saw something there in that. And it might show up in a way that you can kind of, that's in a tangible way, in that the thinking doesn't come as frequently as it used to. But there's something else there. There's something more.
Yeah. And a part of us, I think, a part of us recognizes it. Familiar. And it gets more familiar the more we spend time there, I think.
A question I'm often asked is, how do I know what's the voice of wise wisdom, truth, compared to a different form of the noise in my head that may be my ego, my insecurity, my whatever, but it's about it's Wyn's personal thinking. And people say, how do I differentiate between those two? And I think in what's amazing in what you've shared, Tracy, is that you know, because it feels different. Now, another way of saying it would be, someone might have given you a post on social media saying, it's okay, which is a nice idea. But seeing that that's coming from an internal voice of truth, that's still yet certain voice that is, to me, it feels like it's coming through me, certainly not from my intellect. That has a totally different resonance to it. And that is insight and profound enough that it shifts everything. So it can therefore change someone's view of life from being a survivor to someone who's thriving without anything being different from the outside. It's amazing what that fresh, profound thought can do. Or a truth bomb is what someone said to me last week about, it feels like a truth bomb. And I said, yes, that's one way of describing it. And it's sometimes very quiet, and sometimes it is like a bomb that goes off. It's sometimes seismic, but it has a different feeling. Certainly compared to me trying to kid myself things are okay, compared to me knowing.
Mm. And I think what I've kind of seen lately, and this kind of goes back to what you said, Kate, about the space, is I've always, obviously wisdom has always been there, because, I look back at certain times in my life where there was, like, sometimes there was quite a loud voice in my head, to the point that I was kind of nearly turning around going, who the hell said that? And in particular, when they were things that, like, those truth bombs that were different from the other thinking. But I was hearing it through a veil of insecurity. And even though I was hearing wisdom and sometimes, heeding it, it came with a lot of fear. Whereas where I'm at now is kind of nothing on it, you know. The insecurity and the fear, they don't seem to be around all that much. I know they're around the corner and I know they're not gone away, but they're just, yeah, they're just not around as much. So, and one of the things that, one of my experiments on my adventure that I've been doing, which kind of started towards the end of last year, was just shutting everything down as much as I possibly could. I just felt there was so much interference coming at me from, you should do this, and are you doing this, and you should be doing that, and why aren't you doing this? And that had really been clogging up my head for quite some time. So yeah, I kind of made a decision that, right, I just need to get really, really quiet as much as I can. Like on a scale of 1 to Kate, I'm probably still, you know, not quite that there yet. And it has just been really, really lovely to allow myself that space and time, and not to put anything on it, because so my background is in nursing, and when I trained, like if you were seen standing around, and I also grew up in a family business, you know, my dad had a shop, and you know, if you're seen standing around doing nothing, he'd give you a job. So there was always this idea of doing, you know, you always had to be doing. So just being still and being a human being I had a lot of thinking on that, of, you know, just allowing myself to kind of be quiet and be still. And I found myself kind of coming up to Christmas baking and just cooking and, you know, reading. And there was one day I was in the kitchen and I was listening to a playlist that had like Doris Day and Tony Bennett, and I was baking cookies and something, and my friend rang. And I should point out that we went to school together, and you were more likely to see us swinging off a lampshade, you know, than kind of at home baking. And I was like, oh my God, Veronica, I'm like listening to this music and baking. Who even am I anymore? But I was so content just in the most simple things, so content, no striving, no needing to do something, nothing on it. And allowing myself the opportunity to see what I can do from here, to, you know, to come down here and go, okay, now see, as opposed to being up here in my head. And it's just completely different. It's like your vision gets clearer, you know, things that I would have missed in the past. And it's like, oh, that looks kind of cool. Yeah, okay, let's give it a try. And I think that's why the insecurity is gone, because there's less noise there, number one. And there's just no real thinking about anything. There's just this kind of free form, winging it, being on an adventure. And it feels completely different to the way that I had been doing things. And my connections with people are completely different. And there's room to get even quieter still, probably. Although I did enjoy, you know, kind of in the call last night, that we don't always have to be quiet either. Yeah, so it's just really nice. That's kind of all I can say. It's just a lovely place to be in after what felt like a long time of being lost in my head and lost in my thinking and not feeling the need to have to figure anything out.
You know what, Tracy? It's like, and you just said so many things that you've been seeing. But even if somebody was listening to this podcast that is a doer, like you, like me, like Wyn, like that one gift of realizing that there's nothing to do is a gift so priceless for somebody who's a doer and always feels like it's on them. Like even that one thing, if we realize that, would change everything for people. Especially doers. There's so much relief in that when we realize it's not on us. And I think that's when we start to see those things, like you said, fall away. We didn't do anything. We just kind of noticed, like, oh yeah, I don't really do that so much anymore. Oh yeah, yeah. Now I'm baking and listening to music. I'm content. And you realize you don't live in the same world anymore. It's huge.
Mm-hmm. What's funny is my friend said, Lamppost Swinging friend, she's in the exact same space. You know, we just ring each other some days and it's like, how are you? Great. How are you? Great. What do you do? Nothing. What do you do? Nothing. It's like the sunrise was amazing this morning. Were they always like that? You know, and I guess, you know, for me, I looked back on my calendar, which was kind of color coded in my Google Calendar, and it was just chock-a-block full of what? I don't even know what I was doing that, you know, was taking up so much time. And then you're kind of in this, well, we can't go anywhere. And all of a sudden my calendar is wide open. And it gave me the opportunity. It's like other things opened up for me because of that. And I was open to that. I mean, I was ready to kind of be just gently brought in a new, different direction, where everything has just felt so effortless. And it's not that I haven't been doing things, it's not that I haven't been creating. I've actually done quite a lot in the last 12 months, but I don't feel like I have. And things just seem to, show up, or they just seem to come. I'm not even sure that I'm explaining it very well, but it's that feeling of, oh, I'm just at home. I'm just at home, and things are just falling into place the way they do when you're at home.
There's something in that I find astonishing every time I notice it. I wonder which way around that sentence is. Things fall into place when I'm at home. And I wonder if when I'm at home, everything looks like it's always in place.
Mm. Yeah, I guess I can kind of see that too, like about a year and a half ago, I was kind of, I'd started networking for the first time. And, that's a thing, like, networking. And it kind of felt clunky, a bit awkward. And I'm actually quite sociable and I talk to anybody, but I don't know. I kind of kept coming away going, oh, I don't know. I just don't feel like I fit in. They don't get me, that kind of. And this time, I've joined a couple of groups online and it's completely different. And it's like, oh, it wasn't them, it was me. It's not that they didn't get me. It's that I wasn't really me, or I wasn't, when you were so up in my head about stuff. And it's so much more fun this time round, and like I'm so much more comfortable kind of reaching out and connecting with people. And, I've made friends all over the world from that place, from that ease of being able to reach out and just showing up with nothing on it, Mm.
Yeah. Beautiful example.
And that's why, like, when we were talking before about that space, starts out really small. But that's why when I started to talk about it, I said there's something in that space. And then I realized that's not true. That everything comes from that space. Everything we're talking about. even down to sunrise is looking new, like completely new, to feeling at home even with marketing, like everything. And I think that most people probably don't realize that that space exists. But when you find it, it changes everything.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Thanks, Wyn.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks for joining us. We'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have a topic or question that you'd like us to chat about, email Wyn or Kate at wyn@winning.co.uk and Kate at katerobertscoaching.com. Until then, enjoy what's possible under the noise.